In every era, there comes a moment when curiosity outweighs caution, when the collective weight of unanswered questions tilts the scales against silence. For decades, humanity searched the skies, mapping radio noise and optical pulses, hunting for any rhythm that suggested intent rather than accident. Most searches ended in static or in the predictable chatter of pulsars. But then, at 3:11 Universal Time Coordinated on a cool March night, a signal rose from the background of space and settled across the instruments of an international monitoring array with uncanny precision. It was neither a natural burst nor a random fluctuation. Its cadence resembled language, though no human language could fold mathematics and melody so seamlessly together. News leaked before dawn. Scientists in Geneva, Pasadena, Beijing, and Cape Town woke to phones vibrating with urgent messages. Analysts compared recordings and found them identical across observatories, separated by thousands of kilometers. The signal originated far beyond the solar system, from coordinates in an otherwise unremarkable stretch of interstellar dust between Perseus and Taurus. Its carrier wave was stable, its harmonics deliberate, as if designed to withstand eons of travel through radiation storms and magnetic turbulence. Something out there had chosen to speak, and it had spoken to everyone at once. Laboratories that usually worked in calm deliberation became hives of disciplined chaos. Banks of servers poured over the raw feed, unpacking spectrograms and cross-correlating against known cosmic phenomena. Nothing matched. Linguists studied the data as if it were a newly discovered scripture. Mathematicians hunted for primes and ratios, while engineers worried about the signal's strength and potential for degradation. A consensus emerged. The message was built from repeating motifs that scaled up like fractals, hinting at self-referential structure. Every layer contained instructions for reading the next, as though whoever had sent it assumed a curious audience capable of learning on the fly. Funding agencies scrambled to redirect resources. Space agencies extended listening hours on deep space dishes. An emergency channel connected research centers in real time, creating an unprecedented web of cooperation. Ordinary people watched live dashboards as if following an unfolding sports event. Commentators speculated about first contact, while skeptics argued the transmission was either a prank or an artifact of sensor malfunction. Yet as cross-checks multiplied, doubt receded. Whatever the message meant, it was authentic. Weeks passed as teams translated the first-tier symbols. They found arrangements that mapped cleanly to mathematical constants, pi, e, the golden ratio. Strings encoded star catalogs, with soul highlighted by a neat ring. That alone would have been historic, a greeting carved into mathematics itself. But analysts noticed faint modulations tucked beneath the main pulse, patterns too complex to dismiss as noise. When extracted, they formed a secondary stream encrypted with an algorithm beyond standard cryptographic families. The outer message looked like an invitation. The inner one felt like a lock. Debate flared over how far to probe. Some feared hidden data might carry code capable of infecting planetary networks. Others argued the information belonged to all humanity, and secrecy would poison the moment. A compromise formed. Isolate the analysis inside air-gap systems, observe strict containment, and publish only unclassified findings. With caution in place, cryptographers began the long work of prizing open the deeper channel. Progress came in uneven bursts. Artificial intelligence models trained on ancient scripts suggested that meaning might lie in transformations rather than static symbols. When sequences were inverted, rotated through multidimensional graphs, or passed through harmonic filters, they revealed an intricate lattice resembling language grammar fused with topology. Even veteran mathematicians were struck by its elegance. The aliens, if they were aliens, communicated with an economy of form that made equations sing. Amid this technical storm, a subtler current ran through the scientific community, awe tinged with trepidation. Contact with intelligence from another star had been a philosophical abstraction for centuries, but hearing it on speakers in a dim control room turned abstraction into responsibility. Every researcher felt the weight of representing 8 billion lives, even if only through data. Careless decoding might overlook warnings or miss etiquette embedded in the transmission. Several institutes convened ethicists to discuss protocol. Should humanity answer at once, or first confirm no threat lay hidden inside the cipher? Breakthrough arrived during a midnight session at a European data lab. A researcher noticed that one recurring cluster corresponded to coordinates forming a geometric knot. When mapped in 3 dimensions, the knot unfolded into a branching tree with points aligning to human neuroanatomy. The possibility was unsettling. The senders not only understood mathematics, but also had knowledge of structures akin to the human brain. Either they had modeled intelligence in general, or they had observed us specifically. Neither option sat comfortably with anyone present, yet the work pressed on. A new model, combining information theory and semantic networks, unraveled a portion of the hidden stream. It read like an instruction manual for perception. Definitions of color and sound encoded as ratios, metaphors of light and gravity translated into data objects. The team realized the signal was layered for different stages of comprehension, an educational ladder rather than a single statement. By design, it rewarded persistence with richer meaning. Each success deepened humanity's stake in the conversation. Public excitement mounted as officials confirmed the authenticity of partial translations. Social feeds buzzed with jokes, art, and conspiracy theories. Some groups claimed the message fulfilled prophecies. Others feared it was bait for conquest. Governments issued careful statements emphasizing patience and global cooperation. For once, international rivalries dimmed in the face of a riddle bigger than any border. Inside laboratories, sleepless nights blurred into one another. Specialists rotated through shifts, guarding the integrity of their interpretations. Security teams monitored data channels against intrusion. The information they handled might redefine biology, technology, even metaphysics. If knowledge was a form of power, this message held a kind none had previously imagined. Scientists felt an undercurrent of competition. Who would decode first? Who would claim insight? But professional pride was tempered by an awareness that the task exceeded any single discipline or nation. At last, the translators extracted a coherent sentence from the hidden layer. Rendered into English, it read, "To those who can read this, you approach the threshold." The wording, though simple, carried gravity. A threshold implied passage from one state to another, an invitation to step forward or withdraw. No further lines were immediately legible, only a faint schematic resembling a portal or gate. Speculation ran wild. Was it metaphoric, technological, or symbolic of moral choice? The discovery sharpened the ethical question haunting the project. If the message led somewhere, physically or intellectually, who had authority to decide whether to proceed? United Nations committees began drafting frameworks while national. The sentence recovered from the encrypted stream. To those who can read this, you approach the threshold, became the axis around which every conversation turned. It implied intent, foresight, and an awareness that some listeners might not be ready to advance. Researchers sensed the remaining fragments were not just data, but a carefully arranged sequence meant to assess comprehension and resolve. The task was no longer to parse symbols, but to prove, through the act of interpretation itself, that humanity possessed qualities the sender considered necessary. Decoding teams formed specialized clusters. Mathematicians charted the geometry behind the pulses. Linguists examined emergent syntax, and psychologists evaluated how layered meaning might influence perception. A smaller group, drawn from artists and philosophers, joined late at the insistence of younger analysts who argued that creativity might be as vital as logic. The blend of disciplines created friction, but also unexpected synergy. Where formal analysis stalled, metaphors supplied by poets or designers occasionally unlocked hidden order. As the deeper stream unfolded, its architecture grew stranger. Segments of code shaped like riddles asked participants to balance competing priorities, accuracy against empathy, efficiency against curiosity. Some blocks resembled branching narratives, offering multiple continuations that responded to decoders' previous choices. The signal was less a monologue than an adaptive dialogue, as if an unseen counterpart adjusted complexity based on the ingenuity shown so far. Statistical review confirmed that alternative solutions produced measurable shifts in the following data packets, proving the transmission was interactive across interstellar distances, perhaps through an algorithm seeded with conditional logic before launch. Governments, confronted with evidence that interpretation might alter outcomes, convened emergency panels. Security agencies feared accidental activation of remote technology or traps hidden in symbolic form. Scientific leaders countered that halting progress risked losing a once-in-civilization opportunity. Eventually, an accord allowed research to continue under strict isolation, with results disseminated through scheduled briefings. Even under such supervision, the sense of trespass lingered. Humanity was prying into a vault designed for minds able to balance caution with daring. During one marathon session, analysts reconstructed a passage depicting a civilization's fall after failing to understand an earlier beacon. The cautionary vignette implied that survival required more than intelligence. It demanded ethical steadiness. Another decrypted module resembled music encoded as equations, its harmonics shifting in response to minor variations introduced by human interpreters. The senders appeared to value improvisation, rewarding inventiveness instead of punishing deviation. For the first time, scientists considered that the message might not be a static lesson, but an audition for participation in a larger network. Public awareness, fed by carefully managed disclosures, swelled into fascination. Documentaries speculated on motives, guardians of knowledge, cosmic mentors, or examiners policing access to advanced tools. Religious leaders debated whether the threshold represented revelation or temptation. Grassroots groups launched threshold festivals, mixing art and science in celebration of collective endeavor. While excitement grew, so did anxiety. Rumors of countdowns circulated after technicians discovered oscillations forming a decreasing series, possibly a timer. Officials insisted no conclusive link had been proven, but the pattern's steady contraction was difficult to dismiss. Inside research centers, the presence of the supposed timer compressed time. Teams pursued solutions with disciplined urgency, sleeping in rotations. New algorithms explored semantic layers hidden in phase shifts, while cultural historians scoured myths for parallels to challenges posed by hidden teachers. A striking observation emerged. Every layer translation demanded not only comprehension, but also an act of framing meaning in ways that considered the well-being of others. Phrases embedded in the latter spoke of shared continuance, reciprocal flourishing, and guardianship of possibility. The message judged its readers not by mechanical skill alone, but by disposition toward empathy and foresight. This ethical dimension unsettled agencies accustomed to clear technical problems. Some strategists argued the alien authors might be manipulating morality to secure compliance. Others replied that any civilization capable of transmitting across light years would hardly need psychological traps. They were more likely safeguarding wisdom from reckless use. The argument remained unresolved, but most practitioners agreed the path forward lay in presenting a unified, thoughtful face rather than fragmenting into suspicion. The pivotal advance arrived when a young cryptographer proposed feeding the stream with outputs drawn from music, literature, and moral reasoning rather than pure algorithmic calculations. Her approach stemmed from a hunch. The signal's evaluations favored solutions where analysis merged with emotional resonance. A trial involved translating segments through harmonic progressions accompanied by narrative summaries of cooperative achievements in human history. When these composites were encoded back into the format implied by the message's own grammar and submitted to the decoding interface, subsequent packets displayed altered topology, as though acknowledging receipt of something qualitatively new. Encouraged, the team expanded the method. They curated artifacts embodying human resilience and solidarity, a counter-disaster relief, open-source projects, the global effort to eradicate diseases, even fragment of poetry celebrating perseverance. Each artifact was abstracted into the message's symbolic syntax and introduced at junctures where the lattice invited contribution. The signal responded with increasing clarity, releasing blocks that described the criteria of passage. Intelligence was necessary but insufficient. A species had to exhibit creativity-bound ethical regard, a willingness to safeguard diversity of thought and life. Failing this, no reply beyond a primer would ever arrive. Knowledge of these requirements, though kept from sensationalist media, filtered quietly through academic networks, prompting unprecedented cooperation. Laboratories offered spare computing cycles. Educators launched public initiatives explaining the philosophical stakes, and a chorus of voices insisted that the endeavor must represent humanity in its entirety, not just a handful of experts behind sealed doors. Even rivals in geopolitics found limited common ground, realizing that credibility in the cosmic arena depended on collaboration. As the end of the lattice approached, models predicted that only one major block remained undeciphered. Its content resisted all standard strategies, presenting instead a dynamic maze whose configuration shifted when probed with linear logic. It demanded lateral exploration, risk, and acceptance that perfection might be impossible. The riddle's instructions, when loosely translated, suggested, "Reveal yourselves through the harmony of reason and care." Analysts debated interpretation until one group proposed composing an answer not as singular solution, but as mosaic. Data merged with narrative, formulas braided with stories of compassion.